In a press conference Wednesday about Salt Lake City's new crime plan, Mayor Mendenhall says they've implemented several plans to work towards police reform, such as considering funding for more social workers, as well as diversity and equity training for officers.
Travis Wayne Goodsell, still trying to adjust from the falling back. Saturday, we had a brief power failure. Lights were shut off and then came right back on. And checking Rocky Mountain Power, their website, it eventually showed that people started calling in as they restored power and called to find out what was going on. And I'm kind of surprised. I thought we were on a separate grid, but it was the same problem with the neighbors here rather than our grid I thought we had over there. Anywho, so, yes, I pay attention to the amount of views to see if there's any patterns of your interests. And the last couple of Mondays, there have been a surprising increase in views because I happen to correlate my church video topics with John Oliver's show. So yes, here we go again. Yes, so yeah, the description below will have Reba McEntire's song. If I remember, it'll be the remix version. Gotta have Reba when the lights go out in Georgia. And if you noticed the commercials back in the 50s that he was showing you, they were telling people how to live. Commercials have always been telling us how to live, what we should buy, their product, obviously. And they come up with fallacious arguments for why we should buy their product and throw in our lifestyle that we are supposed to have. And if you have not been listening to my channel, I've gone over that with you. In World War II, Nazi Germany tortured Jews within concentration camps. They had their Nazi police, which they had different names for the different police and the different functions that they had. They didn't call them police. You know, the SS, the Gestapo, and you can watch Hogan's Heroes to educate yourself on all things evil about Nazi Germany. Or you can watch the British show about Frenchmen occupied by Nazi Germany making fun of the Brits, called Hello, Hello. That also will help you with understanding. As you can tell, that's my favorite of the two. And what the Nazis did in these concentration camps was not just gas them, you know, from Prescott Bush funding the gas for the concentration camps, or the Coca-Cola profiting by selling Coca-Cola in Nazi Germany, and other major name brands that continued to sell rather than saying, no, you're committing human atrocities, we're pulling our product. You know, sort of like what sanctions are supposed to do for governments. Nonetheless, despite the added atrocities by our own government. Psychos were brought in, as well as medical doctors, but the majority of them on the list were psychologists, psychiatrists. Psychiatrists are brought in to perform human experimentations through torture. They utilize all different kinds of torture methods. If you've seen any such documentaries or even movies about the time period. Ilsa of the SS is quite a horror movie, but is based on what actually happened. Has psychologists got away with their crimes because they got asylum by the United States to come to America to work with our CIA. And I did the video the other day where one such CIA operative worked with the psychologist to become a psychologist himself, and was the one who fraudulently labeled Brian David Mitchell as mentally incompetent to stand trial for raping and murder. Well, they didn't murder. Kidnapping and raping Elizabeth Smart. Yes, a revision of Elizabeth Smart's history. I'm sure she would have nothing to say on that at all. and so, yes, that's right here in Utah. As I've gone over with you numerous times, Stanley Smith Stevens, the founder of the organized mechanism by which all psychologists now utilize. He was in his prime during Nazi Germany, but he was stationed here in America. As he was born in Utah, he's Mormon. Can you guess by the names? Smith, Stevens? Yeah. He spent his career in Colorado and then died, I think, in 75. But his legacy of infamy lives on. And I've gone over that with you. It's dichotomy and non-dichotomy categorizations, in which he used fallacy to justify the scientific categorization of objects. You know, this is an apple, this is an orange. They're different, but they're both fruit. And so he thought human behavior was going to fool people. It's a fallacious argument. And so, yes, people are classified with mental illnesses based on sitting on a couch and talking to your doctor or observing behavior. There are multiple reasons or conclusions as to why a person says or does something. But psychology, nonetheless, used Stanley's creation of categorization to proceed. And we see this as it took over our government. You notice that there's only two dominant parties running America, and the one is constantly being accused of being communist, and the other is constantly being accused of being Nazi. Oh, that's curious. And yes, they both feed off of each other, as nothing gets done to help us, like the power grid that John Oliver went over. Because it can be solved if we had a government who actually cared to prosper America, rather than big corporations like that one billionaire who took over Tesla. And what really sucks is last week, ABC4 News Utah went on a blitz of posting YouTube clips from their news about how we need to add psychos to our police departments. This feeds into the deep state Dems versus MAGA Nazis. You see, when you have MAGA Nazis, they just, security by taking away your agency, by force, and bloodshed, and violence. Whereas Democrats, the deep state, instead, let's put the torture-prone psychos who are a pseudoscience using fallacy to work with the police, just like in Nazi Germany's concentration camps that tortured the Jews. So that we can have more ex-Mormons tortured like Brian David Mitchell. Not to associate Brian David Mitchell with ex-Mormons. Or to associate with Mark Hoffman, or Ted Bundy, or the Bishop of the Mountain Meadows Massacre, whose ancestor is now in the Senate, or Romney, whose descendant is in the Senate. Romney is the person whose lawsuit made it to the Supreme Court and shut down the church for good. Until Heber J. Grant, who reincorporated. And so, yeah, it's very disturbing. As I watched the A-Team movie, the A-Team was one of the shows I watched on a regular basis as a kid. And so the movie was awesome, as they bring back all the triggers about the original show to show that it is the real A-Team that they're rebooting in a movie form. And the final scene involved Faceman's, and they did a cameo with the original Faceman who played on Battlestar Galactica also, which I watched on a regular basis as a kid. Which was a Mormon inspiration show, in case you didn't know. The 13 tribes, the 13th tribe is the lost tribe that goes to Earth. The reboot was awesome. I'm a little disappointed with the ending, but it got the point across. And then with Caprica, that was awesome too. But Faceman is the one who designs the plan this time, rather than Hannibal Hamlin Smith. That's my great-grandfather, actually. That's why I always referred to that. I don't know why he was called Hannibal Hamlin, but nonetheless, that's the way it was. Faceman talked about the 3 techniques in warfare. It comes from the art of war, but it's the 3 Ds, the triple D. Distraction, diversion, and division. And so you probably heard divide and conquer. But distraction and diversion are also part of this in order to divide. And so commercials like the 50s, that were sexist, trying to set the parameters for what they wanted society to have. That the woman stay home in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant, just like the church says that women should be, and that men should sit around watching the thermostat with their bros. Hilarious. And it's what we've been witnessing this whole time. Because the sad reality is that the survivors of this period of time will look back on this time and go, oh man, that's how they did it. Dear God. Because people aren't seeing it right now. They're being distracted and they're being diverted, and with the divisions that are being caused. And what you're not seeing is this encroachment into our society that ABC4 News Utah reported on last week. The merging of psychos with the police. Just like Nazi Germany. Because before you know it, all of a sudden, we're in it, and we'll be slaves to it, and there's nothing we can do about it. Because they put us in checkmate. And this is what they've been planning for a long time. I used to watch Chris Hayes' show on MSNBC until Xfinity decided to black out my programming. They claim that we haven't done anything. Nothing's changed on our end. Yes. And of course they won't change. Because there's nothing I can do about it. I just have to shut up and take it. But there was one show, well, it's several shows. He kept talking about how Trump's MAGA followers are just dumb and crazy because they believe in Q and they believe Trump and they believe in wild conspiracy theories like the Illuminati. You see, people who claim to be rational claim that the Illuminati are dead and gone. This is the beauty of redoing church history. Identifying the real church history. Because the church is lying to us. All ex-Mormons know it, and that's why they're gone. They're not as evil as Brian David Mitchell or Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. Mark Hoffman, Ted Bundy, the Mountain Meadows Massacre Bishop with his followers, or the ones that were in the news the other month about a unmarked gravesite of indigenous people in that Mormon town. But there are reasons why. And when I came to Utah, I kept hearing Mormons complain about the news coverage. Oh, when it's a Mormon, they always make sure to point out that it was a Mormon. But when it's somebody who's Catholic or another religion, they never point out their religion. That should tell you something. First of all, it's Utah news, where the church is the dominant religion. Pretty much any crime that goes on is most likely committed by a Mormon. And so for you to claim the small sampling fallacy, not really justified. But, the real church history has uncovered many things that has set off the church. And they're pissed. With me, guys. With me. They were frustrated with the Tanners, but they never sought to murder and assassinate the Tanners. All the Tanners were doing were uncovering documents and interpreting by their Christian beliefs. There's nothing wrong with that. They found primary source documents, they got a hold of them, they were showing them to others, hey, this is the original church. And then they ruined it by throwing in their Christian beliefs. Joseph Smith was not Christian. So, duh, or der, if you heard the news about that, a regular guy who works for a regular job and won the election last week. And so all the comedians, wouldn't surprise me if John Oliver had something like that too. But they only show on YouTube the main segment, so I don't know what his first introductory thing is, because Xfinity blacked out HBO for me. So anyway, and so the real church history is pissing off the prophets. And I've gone over with you that I filed lawsuits against the church. The first one was because I have the evidence that they paid for my assassination. That therefore they ordered it. You see, if you don't understand Putin, you've probably heard in the news that, you know, Cozy Bear and Our Evil are hacking America, and oh no, and oligarchs from Russia are involved in conspiracies against America. Well, what you probably don't know is that they do not do anything unless Putin gives them permission. If they attack America, it's because Putin ordered it. One of the things that Putin has been ordering has been the hacking of our electrical grid. He's been doing that for years now. And I saw a YouTube clip, and I can't figure out the title to find it anymore, but MSNBC's Ari Melber was doing a reporting of it in 2015. How Russia just is experimenting and toying, testing to see if they can still do it throughout the year after year, going from place to place in America to shut off the grid just to see if they can still do it. And that's part of the distraction, diversion, because of what they've got planned. And they're already implementing it. They're in their final stages, as our government is helping. But it's the same way with the church. Nothing gets done unless the prophet orders it. And the prophet consults with all 15 14 plus him, to do things in the church. So the council on the disposition of tithes, it's all 15 prophets. So when the whistleblower comes out and says, hey, they're committing crimes, these are the specific crimes that I'm whistleblowing on, it's all 15 prophets that are committing the crimes, giving the orders to Ensign Peak Advisors. And so it's not just the president of the church who ordered and paid for my assassination. It's the agreement of all 15. And this was way back in 2008. So it was under Monson. Nelson was still just an apostle, just an elder. There's so many inside jokes as a Mormon. And so when I sued, it's because I had found out. I was shocked. There was the website of the person who tried to have me assassinated, and the church right there on the website paying her. So yes, the first lawsuit was about that, and it was dismissed because Judge Waddups, who refused to recuse himself despite being compromised to the church as a Mormon, paying tithing, it's not a donation, it is not a membership fee, it is a requirement called a protection racket. He claimed in his final judgment denying me my petition for a redress of grievances that I was using an ad hominem. No. It's carved in stone evidence that I presented. And on the Monday morning that I presented it, the defense counsel had to wait for one particular apostle to finish an interview with a Jew in Israel, a rabbi. He was being interviewed that morning, as I later found out. and as we found out 2 weeks later, Holland, after that interview, was rushed to the hospital. Why? What happened? What was in that document? Well, I did a reading for you. I dropped the bomb. And all it is the pictures from the Salt Lake Temple's keystone. And the Eagle Gate, which I mislabeled as the Seagull Gate. But learning that it was the Eagle Gate, oh, I see now. Oh, I know the origins. Because I had already done the videos going over with you about Heber C. Kimball and his masonry, as it's different on the Wikipedia page than in his journal. But we don't have his journal. We do have somebody else who did a book himself about that portion from the journal, which is thus worded differently than the Wikipedia page. But as it would take me too much longer to find the Wikipedia page, it's just quicker to go to the Masonry under Heber C. Kimball and Wikipedia, since the electricity is still working. Stay away from those snakes. I've gone over with you the significance of this. Because if you just take this and isolate it out from church history, not say, hey, wait a minute, Canandaigua, New York? Somebody else in church history was associated with Canandaigua, New York. Joseph Smith Sr. You're not going to know what's going on with the real church history. And the church refuses to allow us to know the truth. First of all, the Masonry thing is incorrect from the actual journal. There are some differences, but the main things are still intact. One, that in 1823, Kimball claims that he was a Master Mason. That's what it means to have the 3 craft degrees of Freemasonry. There are the first 2 levels, and then you're a Master Mason. Because there's somebody who wrote a book on this, sort of. It was actually the Batavian Press under David Miller, who had paid William Morgan to work on a book about the threat to America by the Freemasons. Which one? York or Scottish, or the one George Washington was involved with? You see, if you throw in fallacy, generalization, you screw up history. And Victor Flats is now red. It used to be blue. It has been shown wrong, because he claims that he's going to Canandaigua to apply for the Royal Ark Masonry degree. You're a Master Mason, now you want to apply to Canandaigua, New York, where Joseph Smith Sr. is the Master Mason, and you want to skip to the 7th rank. From 4 to 7. And you were at the lodge in Victor Flats, and you're going to Canandaigua to be a Yorkrites Royal Ark, when Victor Flats is in the area of the Scottish Rites. You can't mix. You have to pick one or the other. And so if he became a Master Mason, as he claims in 1 year, it took Joseph Smith Sr. 18 years to become the Master Mason of Canandaigua. And so, obviously, Heber C. Kimball is lying to us from his journal. Now, why would he lie? He tells us why. He says the anti-Masons had burned down the chapter building in Canandaigua. So the records are lost that Joseph Smith Sr. accepted his petition to skip to the Royal Ark. So, anti-Masons? Oh, that's William Morgan, the guy who disappeared. David Miller paid him for the book. And then David Miller, to make money, published the book under William Morgan's name. Try to recoup his losses. That's not the book William Morgan was working on. was about a threat to America. See, the actual book about Freemasonry, there's no threats in there. Actually, it says the Freemasons are actually good people and trying to help society. Huh. How are Freemasons a threat? Make good men better? Yeah. I wonder if somebody else may have gotten a hold of the manuscripts who was working on them in Canandaigua and published the book after rescuing William Morgan and having him flee the country. So yes, all the church history centralizes in Canandaigua. And if you are unfamiliar, the Illuminati infiltrated in the War of 1812. They infiltrated America. The war was a distraction and a diversion, while the Illuminati then put their sleeper cells in the Scottish Rites Masonry. And that's what William Morgan found out. So just like Putin and Russia back in the 80s under Reagan, there was the movie Americans. Let's see if it was HBO. Kerry Russell and Matthew Rhys were the main characters. They were the sleeper cell, living like Americans in America. And I've told you about the Russian woman who was there at my Smith's grocery store. She tried to appear like she was separating from the rest of the people, but I was right there getting my orange juice for the week, and there she was on the phone speaking Russian. And I look at her, she looks at me. Are you sure you're getting away from the right people that you don't want to hear you? It's the FX network. Really? FX? So it was Fox? Alright, whatever. I bought it on DVD, so. So yeah, during the Cold War, Russia sent over sleeper cells, or had sent over sleeper cells. They were having families, and they're still here, guys. Russia didn't call them back. They're still here. Because they've got something else going on in the very near future. And so yes, this Illuminati is the source for that kind of art of war tactic. And when I found out about John C. Bennett, oh, an Illuminati? Oh, as a Danite? Oh, See, because what I've gone over with you about Heber C. Kimball is that he knows about William Morgan. He knows about the anti-Masons. Guess which rank William Morgan was? Oh, he was the Royal Ark. Heber knows. And so, I've gone over with you why Brigham Young, thanks to the Mormon author of the new book, Brigham Young, why Brigham Young joined the church. It was for revenge for the church not healing his wife with priesthood power. For Heber, it was the anti-Mason movement, as you can see from his little segment there that he wrote in his journal. but later life. He founded a short-lived Halcyon order of the Illuminati to reinforce Strang's power over his kingdom. What? The Illuminati in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? John C. Bennett was excommunicated. This is after Joseph died. And he formed an Illuminati order? A Halcyon order of the Illuminati. Huh. On Beaver Island in Michigan. It's the beaver moon this month, isn't it, when we're having our lunar eclipse? November full moon. Beaver moon. Isn't that interesting? There's other things going on that I don't have time to tell you. But why an Illuminati order? I thought the Illuminati were dead, that they were no longer in existence, that they didn't come to America, that they didn't infiltrate the Scottish Rites. That's all just conspiracy theory incorrectly defined. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is associated with the Illuminati. John C. Bennett went to the Danites, saying, "Help me! Joseph Smith excommunicated me." They said, "Get away from us, you're exposing us." He goes and forms an Illuminati branch. Danites are connected with the Illuminati too. Danites were run by Brigham and Heber. Oh, Scottish Rites. Anybody familiar with Albert Pike? And his letter to Giuseppe Mazzini. Oh, Scottish Rites, talking about the Illuminati, talking about the doctrine of Lucifer for the Third Great War, to destroy Christianity because of their belief in a false god of Constantine. And so what does a keystone mean again? It represents the doctrines taught within the building. What is the keystone in the Salt Lake Temple again? That represents the doctrines being taught within the temples. Now, do you understand why there's an inverted pentagram, the symbol of the Illuminati, on the Nauvoo temple after Joseph is dead? And which position is it in? You have at the bottom the sunstone. The sun rising in the morning horizon because it's at the bottom. Then above it, at the noonday position, the inverted pentagram of Venus? What? Venus never ascends. We learn this from Isaiah, which is also in the Book of Mormon. It's in the Book of Mormon. Is there anything else that would explain this from the Book of Mormon? Like maybe a great abominable church working with secret combinations that was just exposed last month about their little black book of membership, and the Scousins were a part of it, working against America to destroy it, and the church directly affiliated, like Oaks, with many of the members? Oh, oops. Yeah, it's amazing what happens when the real church history is exposed. The prophets tend to get a little angry. They tend to want to silence a person on YouTube for any excuse possible. Sort of like saying, oh, he's telling his viewers to follow medical professionals, we better shut him down. No, it was because I'm the one who's influencing your education if you are bothering to study your footnotes in the foreign language editions. That part they needed it shut down. So I redid the video, and now you have it. Because they have no excuse now for the telling you to follow medical professionals. And so, yeah, John C. Bennett was a bombshell. And, of course, I had yesterday's bombshell. And I don't think many people watched that video. It was an hour long, but that doesn't stop people. Let's see how it's doing this morning. MAGA insiders admit Trump was lying in new book. Why do we need other people to tell us Trump was lying? We all know he lies. Trump himself published books saying, yeah, I lie. I use hyperbole all the time. It's a great tactic to deceive and distract and divide to get what I want. MSNBC. Oh, 30 in 21 hours. Exposing Brigham Young's anointed quorum and Council of 50. They're anti-government, guys. That's what this bombshell did. It linked it all together. This was the Illuminati's plot that's in the Book of Mormon. And I found it in the history. And so the church says that Joseph Smith had a vague passage in his journal on the 3rd, and then did something on the 4th. But it's mainly Heber C. Kimball who wrote a letter to Parley P. Pratt. Was it Parley? I think it was Parley P. Pratt, to inform him of what they were doing. And he said, I can't tell you. It's a sacred secret. And so we're left assuming it's this anointed quorum that was organized on May 3rd, 1842. Are we sure it was the 3rd? Are we sure? 9 people? Anybody see Johnny Depp's 9 Gates? It's a movie. Yeah, I still don't have an update on the tenant yet. I hope they're doing fine, but as far as I know, they're still in the hospital. This was the latest attack on my life by President Nelson, who ordered it. Nothing gets done without him ordering it. And even during the lawsuits, the church had to come out with a statement saying, please do not do anything without our approval. You're going to get the church in trouble. And so YouTube, they cannot attack me unless they have permission from the presidents of the church, the presidency of the church, the prophets. And I noticed Russia is still listening. They can't act unless Putin gives them permission. Not the church, Putin. And so they've apparently sort of backed off. They've gone into surveillance mode. But yeah, I've noticed that they've been watching me ever since 2017. And I was able to identify them through my website. Website was awesome until the church bought it out with their invested company and shut me down the day after I filed my lawsuit, the first one. The second lawsuit was about how the judges are compromised. which was an open and shut case, but the judges themselves said, we're denying your petition for redress of grievances. What a surprise. And so, yeah, the finding out about the Mormon War, oh my God, the exact same pattern as January 6th. The exact same pattern. This evil organization has no creativity. They use the exact same pattern. Distraction, diversion, division. So that they can accomplish their goals. And January 6th, that too was just a distraction, diversion for division. They told us and warned us there's something coming, and they keep failing to do it on QAnon's days for having it done. But that's the whole point. You get people to relax and say, oh, they're just saying it again. We're not going to... And then boom. That's how they do it. And so I don't see people catching on to the fulfillment of biblical prophecy of the latter days, which is in the Book of Mormon 2. Remember, Nephi is told by an angel about the second coming of Jesus, of Constantine, about this apostle of the Lamb who writes about the latter days. His name is John. So the book of Revelation is in the Book of Mormon, and they're tied together. And so when Revelation 12 gives us a precise day and hour for the start of the latter days, in chapter 12, Joseph Smith does a little fun thing in the Joseph Smith revision. And then chapter 19, 11 and 17 is the last year of the latter days. And there it is in the Book of Mormon. At the beginning, and when Constantine's Jesus comes out of the sky, without his horse this time, on the death day, at the Zion Temple in Bountiful. And all Mormons miss it, just as that Mormon missed it, who is now commemorated by Bill Maher. Because when I saw the news article, religious man hangs from the balcony of the Senate. They got his picture there. He's all in his gear and costume. And so I said, religion? Which religion? He's from Idaho. Okay. Which religion? So I was checking and searching. Mormon. He works with kids for his living. Yay! And so he's a traitor to America. He committed an act of treason as a Mormon. And how should he be not categorized with Chad and Lori and Brian and Mark and Ted and John Dealey? Not to be confused with John Peely, the apostle who was an indigenous person who was excommunicated, and then they sabotaged him to be locked up for crimes. All he wanted was to fulfill scriptural prophecy to have the Indians blossom as a rose. Church said no. And so Now you know the bigger picture, even though I took out lots of information for time constraints. But you have that Mormon wearing his MAGA hat, just as John said, the mark of the beast over the foreheads. And people just miss it. The majority of them are religious people who follow Trump. Why? Because they think he's like Cyrus, who's going to bring about Jesus. And Jesus isn't going to show, because Constantine created him. And the enemy knows this, because it's their intention to destroy Christianity, which is great, helping people to come unto science and to logic rather than anti-science and fallacy, but not by murder. That's where the problem is. If people could be rational, if religion could be rational, we wouldn't have these problems. But you notice how religion is getting extremist? Yeah. Because the religious commercials are telling them to be. When Nelson gets up at the pulpits of conference, he's influencing Mormons to act and behave a certain way. And so this last October, he called Mormons to arms. At the same time, he called me a traitor and said, "I'm coming to assassinate you again." He failed again, but this time somebody's actually going to potentially die. Well, no, I take that back. A previous assassination attempt, he has now over 4,000 dead and counting. So that one is working, sort of. It didn't get to me yet, which is why he got more specific. Because Governor Herbert had all things set up. We're going to set the example to all the world that Utah is the place that can keep this under control. And then the church got served. And then a certain person on a cruise ship came directly to the wrong hospital, if they want to do research on this, which just happened to be at a pivotal location designed for where I commonly use, and all hell broke loose as Herbert all of a sudden, I don't think we're going to do anything. We're just going to let this spread and escalate around the state. And then we're going to victim blame Utahns for the cause. As he had, I went over this with you, 10,000 for months, just wandering around spreading it. And he's blaming you guys. Oh, you're on your honor to go home and stay home. You're forcing them to choose to not get money or to go to work and get infected. You're forcing parents who chose not to go to work what to do about their children. Do they send them to school or do they keep the children home? Do they go to work or do they not? That's extortion. And everybody just says, oh, that's just the way it is. I gotta keep the economy going, I guess. No! The medical professionals told us we all need to stay home for a couple of months until it all passes over The Jews celebrate that, don't they? Oh, it's for the Israelites, so everybody should be celebrating it? How did the Jews be the only ones celebrating that? And so, yes, it's not a coincidence that Joseph Smith talks about it from the Exodus right there in Doctrine and Covenants, section 45, which is a prophecy to Mormons about the latter days, verse 31. And guess what? Verse 32 tells Mormons to do when it comes. Stay home. Do not be moved. And the prophet, the church prophets, trillions of dollars for a rainy day, they said. What constitutes a rainy day now? Because it's pouring, flooding. As we had the Exodus drought. We missed the window for the Exodus. So now if we have a big catastrophe event, crap. Prophets refuse to give of their money to the poor and the needy, the sick and the afflicted. They just do their token amounts because the widow gave 2 mites. Remember when I told that joke? We're following the example of the widow and giving 2 mites to help the poor and the needy. Not as funny as the first presidency themselves after the whistleblower. They came out with their statement saying, we're just following the parable of the talents. Oh my God! It's about saving souls for eternity. It's not about making money. You just confessed to committing crime. You supported the whistleblower. You blew it. Oh my God! And yet they're getting away with it. The government refuses to come down on them, like they did the Mormon. I think the Mormon is locked up now, isn't he? Let's see if we can find out and we'll end. Bruce Guild Senate insurrection. Okay, rioter who was pictured hanging off Senate wall, chamber wall. That's 9 January. Here's October. Entrance, that's Idaho man. That's still January. Capitol insurrection updates. I don't see anything lately. Says he was arrested. Is it still pending? Is that what I'm supposed to take from this? So 5 weeks ago, 90 seconds of rage. It doesn't tell me anything. Republican truck driver, Ed Durr. There he is, truck driver. 2 weeks ago, transcript, all in with Chris Hayes. No, that's not it. Trumping democracy, an American coup. CNN. Timeline of the coup. Meet the Press, Chuck Todd, Facebook Papers. How is this Idaho man? Idaho man. I'm not seeing anything about what happened to him. Idaho man arrested. Here's KSL News. Utah-based FBI agent pleads guilty. Okay, so he pled guilty? Oh, September 9th. Okay, so he pled guilty. Here we go. Idaho man arrested by Utah-based FBI agents pleads guilty. These are the new FBI agents under the new FBI director of the Utah area, which incorporates Idaho and Wyoming. The picture's gone. So I'm sure it was him scaling the walls. I should still have that picture. It still needs to be filed properly so I can find it easy. Here. Pleads guilty to assaulting police in U.S. Capitol riot. That's all you're pleading guilty to. Yep. See, what they're trying to do, and I understand it, but it's wrong. We got Trump. We got all the documents. We got all the audio and video. We got them. We don't need the lesser people to work their way up to the top. So that's what's frustrating about this. You know, when you don't have the goods on Trump, yeah, you go through, start from the bottom and work your way up to the top. That's what they're doing. But no, we got the goods on Trump. And they won't do it. They won't take him down, lock him up. So annoying. So frustrating. So an Idaho man pleaded guilty Tuesday. You can't call him by name. Duke Edward Wilson. Guilty. Pleaded guilty Tuesday in U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Yeah, you have to remove him from Utah and Idaho, don't you? To one count of assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers or employees, and one count of obstruction of an official proceeding. Oh, which official proceeding? The one that you should be being accused for sedition and insurrection? Dear God. You got awful light. And so I guess we're waiting for the sentencing then. April, he was arrested. 5 Idaho residents have been arrested and charged in connection with Capitol riot. Wilson is the second to plead guilty. And Utah ones too. I don't see. Oh, no, his next hearing is scheduled for November 22nd. Oh. So there it is. There's the sentencing. Let's see. Told Wilson that while entering guilty pleas may have been difficult, there were a step forward. His next hearing is scheduled. That's the sentencing. Wait a minute. Wilson could also face fines of up to $500,000. He remains free pending sentencing? Oh. Joseph Smith told us, 19 July 1840, save America, save the Constitution. When that moment comes, save it. And instead, Mormons help the insurrection.